Hi guys, Cohh here with another thoughts video, this time on Vampyr. This game I was looking forward to when it came out. I have been a huge fan of vampire games, and there's not a lot out there, unfortunately. Really since one back in the day called Vampyr the Masquerade Bloodlines, which is kind of, as many vampire game fans would say, kind of like one of the best vampire games ever made, if not the best. Many feel it is the best. And so when Vampyr came out, obviously there was going to be a lot of comparisons to Vampyr the Masquerade Bloodlines, and now I will talk to you about my thoughts on that. So first of all, what is Vampyr? Vampyr is a slightly realistic, it is a more realistic and immersive vampire game taking place in the 19th century, 20th century, early 20th. It's a historical game where you play through London during an influenza outbreak. It is a game that prides itself on its realistic setting, very realistic characters, believable characters, but of course there's all the supernatural that comes with vampires and stuff. But it is a very kind of more of a somber, realistic look at vampirism. Just like Vampyr the Masquerade Bloodlines, this game follows what I like to call the 60-20-20. And what that is this game, and I'm not kidding when I say this, so especially if you don't know what Vampyr is, pay attention here. This game is about 60% dialogue. About 60% of the time, you will find yourself talking to people, exhausting options, listening to their thoughts, getting clues on people. It is primarily talking to people. Then you have 20% about world exploration, running around a relatively large and cool world, and then about 20% combat, which is also featured in the game. Now, interestingly enough, I would say that the 60-20-20 is very similar to what Vampyr the Masquerade Bloodlines did. So that's kind of a plus to it, honestly. Now, I will say this, though, and this may be a stopping point for many of you in this video. If you are not a dialogue fan, if you are not somebody who likes to kind of become immersed in the dialogue between characters in a game, this game is going to be a little bit tough for you. It is not the kind of game that you can just skip through dialogue as you get to the action scenes. It is definitely a game that they have painstakingly attempted to make good conversations, good dialogue, believable voice acting, lots of little nuances. It's a very large game in that regard. So now, as for me, I'm a fan of that stuff. It's one of the reasons I love Vampyr the Masquerade Bloodlines. But I do want to make sure people understand. It is not, for instance, like an action game. It is not a Bloodborne. It is not. It is mostly a talking simulator with some world exploration and combat mechanics as well. So overall, now that I've finished the game in 27 hours, I have to say that I really, really enjoyed it. I am looking forward to DLC and hopefully a Vampyr 2. I found the story to be relatively engaging. I found the ending to have a lot of twists and turns. I really liked the very end, especially because it definitely was a culmination of everything that happened throughout the game. There were a little bit of issues for us throughout the game, just a few bugs, and especially there was one specific instance when I really wanted to do something, but the game didn't give me the option because I wasn't as thorough as I should have been. And that one point in the game turned out to be the one person that I ended up, not to spoil too much, but of course you get the choice to save or kill people. And I was forced to do something I didn't want to someone. And that unfortunately kind of messed up my ending a little bit. But I still loved the ending, even though it wasn't the one I got. In fact, looking back, I'm kind of glad that happened the way it did. And it did work out pretty well. So overall, would I recommend Vampyr at its current price? I actually would. I mean, you're talking to a guy that spent almost 30 hours in it. So, and I had a great time. I had a great time the whole time. So I definitely would say that it's something I recommend. Also important to keep in mind that I did a playthrough called a no kill. And it's very interesting because in this game in particular, how you choose to go about interacting with your various targets greatly influences the power of your character and also what abilities you have open to you. So in my playthrough, I didn't really get to experience a lot of that side of the game. So keep that in mind. And it did make the combat pretty difficult, especially some of the bosses towards the end. There were a couple bosses towards the end that I had to spend like 20 plus attempts on. No kidding. It was pretty difficult. But even with all that being said, I really enjoyed the playthrough. I had a really good time playing it exactly how I wanted to, with only that one little slip up. And if you're a fan of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, as long as you're okay putting some of that kind of goofiness to the side and exchanging that for a little bit more historical realism, I think you could have a lot of fun in this game. So that's going to be it for this. I did like Vampyr. Very much looking forward to Vampyr 2 or more DLC. Really appreciate those that stopped by and watched during it. And yeah, I'll see you next Thoughts video. Thanks, guys.